welcome to another episode of Inspire Careers Spotlight on Recruiting, the video podcast series where I pull the curtain back on recruiting firms to help people, job seekers, understand exactly what executive recruiting firms do and the type of assignments that they're filling, and most importantly, to mine some tips and strategies to help job seekers be more effective in their interactions with the executive recruiters. So my guests today are Randy Strauss from executive search consultants firm StraussGroup and Emily Barber, who is the Director of Contract Staffing. Welcome to both of you today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Randy is the owner and managing partner of StraussGroup. And I'm going to start with you today, Randy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your firm, how you got into recruiting, and exactly what type of placement your firm specializes in?
Okay, well, I started this company about 20 years ago. I came up to Buffalo for different reasons to join a very large regional bank, which worked out quite well. But after a short period of time, I decided I wanted to go out on my own. And I opened this firm. And our specialties include financial services, nonprofits, healthcare, and manufacturing. And I primarily focus on executive search, which is senior level positions. And we also have a contract staffing division, which Emily Barber oversees.
Well, welcome, Emily. I'm so happy, and let's let our audience know too that you just recently joined the StraussGroup team.
I did. I'm happy to be here and happy to be on the team.
Well, why don't you start telling us a little bit, Emily, about what contract staffing is? I don't think some people understand fully. So why don't you talk a little bit about your role?
Sure. So there's a lot of different ways you can talk about contract staffing. Typically, it gets confused because it has so many names. I mean, there's
Right.
Contract staffing, interim staffing, temporary staffing, and really here we like to call it flexible staffing, which gives employers opportunities to really diversify their workforce rather than just having permanent staff on board. There's opportunities to have really, really skilled employees come on board for a month or two to work on a really specialized project. Maybe they have a specialized skill set that they can add to the team, but maybe the employer doesn't necessarily need this person on board for a year time. There's temporary opportunities where people can come on board for a year or two. They can come on board for a week. It really depends on what the need of the employer is. And we're finding that in 2021, there is a really big shift to a more contingent workforce right now.
Well, hasn't COVID changed the way we all work, right?
Yes.
And the way all of our businesses function, and employers have to be incredibly flexible to be able to meet the changing demands. I mean, every day it's something different, right? And so, kudos to you guys for recognizing that that's an important piece to help employers be successful.
Right, exactly.
So Randy, let's talk a little bit about, can you share with us some of the open search assignments that you have right now? What are you looking to fill that you can talk about a little bit?
Sure. We have a lot of assignments to fill in our organization because of the fact that we've been here for 20 years and we have a lot of resources. Personally, I'm working on 2 CFO positions, a controller position, a chief communications officer position, senior vice president, head of production for a mortgage bank, regional mortgage bank, and many other mid-level to senior level operations positions in mortgage banking. We also have a director of human resources locally and many other positions that I could expand upon if someone wanted to know.
Well, when you say the director of human resources position locally, are all the positions that you're looking to fill local here in the Western New York area, or do you fill positions outside of this area?
No, we work nationally. However, the positions that I gave you are all local.
Okay. All right, great stuff.
And we probably have migrated to about 70% local because of the fact that we've been here for so long.
Yeah. Well, people learn about what you do. They learn to trust you.
Yeah.
And it's a really important resource for this area.
Yeah.
Emily, can you talk to us a little bit about the open search assignments that you have, the type of jobs that you're looking to fill right now?
Sure. Right now, I'm looking to fill a director of business development for a local construction company right now that's rapidly growing. It's a member of the senior leadership team reporting directly to the president of this company. Really, really great opportunity for someone who is well networked in the community and looking to join a growing, successful company. And I'm also looking for an assistant controller for a community regional bank right now that is reporting up to a controller, would lead a team. So someone who is really, really a strong leader and who is very savvy in the financial realm. So those are the two opportunities that I'm working on right now as I'm trying to build and grow our contract staffing division right now.
And let me add just one more thing to that statement. We have a number of temporary positions open on the accounting side, on the executive assistant side, and also on the healthcare side. There's plenty of contract positions available for candidates who are good, who are looking for opportunity.
Oh, wonderful.
We also have an extensive database of contract staffing candidates as well, who are ready to work. So for anyone that's looking for really high quality candidates who are going to come on board to a company for a week or a year, depends on what the needs of the company are, we're happy to make that connection there.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. You know, this is great conversation because I hear people saying all the time that there are no good jobs left and that they can't find roles. So just even this brief conversation has shown that there are a lot of great positions out there. And as we talk about in the industry, a lot of these best jobs aren't even posted, which is what makes your firm so important to help make those connections for employers and for job seekers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So as a professional resume writer and career coach, the next question I have is always one of my favorite, and I'd like a response from both of you. Randy, what is the biggest resume mistake that you see as resumes come across your desk?
Me, the number one mistake that I see is typos on the resume. That is the number one. And when I see a typo on a resume, I literally turn it over and go to the next one. So people need to be more careful about that.
Well, I think that's an issue of quality. If they can't provide the quality on the resume, what will they do for the employer, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Emily, what about you? What is the biggest mistake you see on resumes?
That's a good question. I really look for metrics-based accomplishments. So when people basically list their job description on their resume, that's great that we know what your job entails, but we want to know, what did you accomplish while you were there? If you led a team, instead of saying led small team, how many people did you actually lead? If you improved sales, by what percent, right? So if you led new business development, how many new clients did you bring on board? So we want to understand really what were your accomplishments in your role, other than just what did your job entail?
We want measurable accomplishments.
Right.
We want something we can give back to the client and say, this is what this person actually accomplished.
And as I talk to my clients, I tell them that is really one of the biggest shifts, and there's a lot of them, but that's one of the biggest shifts that's happened over the years. 10, 20, 15, years ago, you could provide a copy and paste of your job description, essentially. But today, you really have to be able to demonstrate that value so that you, as search consultants, can really help place people appropriately with these employers.
Yes, no doubt about that. I would say, I want to add one thing to this part of the conversation. The greatest thing that any candidate could do for their job search is to make the resume specific to the job. Without fabricating, of course, you should highlight the things that are important to the job itself, so that when the client reads it, they can use that information to determine if they're actually qualified for the job. So a lot of resumes are very general, and the general resumes today are less relevant than they were years ago, to your point.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hardest things for job seekers. They get very frustrated when I tell them that. But it's important for the employer to be able to see them in that role. And we know this, and I'm sure you guys have the same situation, is that you cannot create the story for people, meaning if they don't demonstrate their story and the value in the resume, You're not going to sit there and put the pieces together. You can't, and an employer can't. So
Yeah.
it's really incumbent on the job seeker to do that.
Yeah.
So that's great advice. And so then, Emily, I would ask you, what tip might you have for job seekers to help increase their communications and improve their interactions as they're reaching out to you?
Sure. So we have a lot of great candidates in our database and who we have relationships with, but for job seekers who are looking to strengthen a relationship with us, I think the first thing is being transparent. Be transparent with us about what you really want, what you're looking for. If you're talking to other companies, let us know so that we don't duplicate efforts, because that could really hinder an experience or a opportunity with a client or a company if we reach out but you're already in a conversation with them. So we just want to make sure that we have that transparent, trustworthy relationship where we know what's going on so that we can do our best to help you. So that's something that we value, especially in our relationships with job seekers. Another little tip would be to keep your resume updated, because opportunities come along and we'll give you a call and say, hey, we think you'd be a great fit for this. If your resume is not updated to send it over to us, it does slow down the process. So if your resume is updated and you shoot it our way, it makes it so much easier for us to just send your profile to different companies who may think that you're a great addition to the team. So those are my 2 pieces of advice.
So what I hear both of you saying is job seekers need to help you to help them, right, by helping themselves. So Randy, can you describe any upcoming?
I'll add one more. I'm going to add one more tip to that while we're here. If job seekers have special circumstances that cause them to have left their company, they should explain that in a cover letter so that it's clear to the hiring manager. Right now, especially, there are a lot of people out of work that are very, very good. It was the case years ago that if you were out of work, it was a big red flag. Now it's not a red flag as much, because there are a lot of very good people that are just not working. So it's important that we are able to tell the story. You mentioned earlier, resumes tell stories. That's what they do. Okay, they tell the story about the candidate. And so if they're not specific on the resume, which I understand about why they left, then they should be very specific in a cover letter to us.
That's great advice. And I think with COVID and the amount of people that are out of work, people need to recognize that that's not going to be held against them. And I think the longer people are out of work, the more that they feel that pressure and that there may be something wrong with them and they're feeling devalued. But I think being able to tell that story in the cover letter to you helps them as well as helps you to bridge that gap for them. But really, under the circumstances of what's happening in the job market right now, it is really just, let's fill in the blanks, no judgments at this point. People don't need to be afraid of that, but be able to tell that story and help you understand so that you can represent them well to the employers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to throw in a little something for you, and this again is unplanned, but the resume needs to be formatted properly. If you can get your resume done by a professional organization such as Inspire, you're far better off, because every job opening attracts anywhere from 20 to 120 resumes, and your resume needs to be as good or better looking than everyone else's. So don't try to prepare a resume if you don't know how to format it properly. Use a professional service.
Well, one of the things that I focused more on with my clients on over this past year very heavily is personal branding and bringing into the resume. And I think it's still just, people are still just trying to understand the role that that plays in marketing themselves for jobs. It really is about what makes you unique and separates you out from others. Personal branding is just that. It's for everyone. It's about the roles that you play. It's about the energy that you give off. And that's what people are hiring. If they want to hire unique capabilities in someone. So if you're not honing in on that, you're missing the boat on some very important piece that employers are looking for. So why don't we talk about some upcoming trends? We're heading right into 2021 right now. So Randy, what are you kind of foreseeing on the future landscape here as to what might be happening in 2021, and what tips can you give people about that?
Well, I'm going to defer to Emily, but I'll say that the reason why we hired such an experienced person like Emily in the flexible staffing space is because that is the trend. And I'll let Emily expand on that.
Right. So flexible staffing is going to be huge in 2021, and we're already seeing it blowing up. I mean, in the most recent article I read in HBR, they surveyed leaders throughout the country, and 90% of those leaders said that flexible staffing is going to be the key to their ability to compete in the future. And that's huge. That's a huge statement. So really, we're seeing a shift from the traditional permanent placement, full-time workforce to a more diversified workforce when it comes to having permanent placements, some contingent workers, and some remote workers as well. So there's a really different mix in 2021 that we're looking at. And we're also taking a look at the way that interviews are being conducted. Virtual remote interviews are here to stay. Those are not going anywhere. So make sure that you have your Zoom account if you're a recruiting firm ready, because the remote interviews are here to stay. That is a trend that the recruiting world is seeing moving forward.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, not only remote interviews, but remote working is here to stay. And even though it's going to change and people are going to go back to work, not all of them are going back to work. A lot of them are not going back to work, and they're finding that people are just as productive remotely, which is very important to us because it opens up the population of people that we can actually recruit. If they allow remote people, then we have a lot more people to choose from.
But conversely, then the job seekers have a lot more competition. And I think that's important for them to recognize, back to the conversation about effective resume writing and storytelling and personal branding. And if job seekers are not clear on what the changes are happening and they're still stuck in the past, then they are putting themselves at a disadvantage for these jobs that are coming available. So you also make a great point that having top-notch video interviewing skills is critically important. And work from home strategies, people say, I can work from home. They're sitting at the kitchen table, standing at the island in their kitchen. That's not what it's about. It's about team collaboration, and it's really about that ongoing communication, feeling like you're still together without being in the same room. And it really is an elevation of what some people considered just makeshift working from home. It's a whole different skill set. And I think that's important for people to understand that as they're moving forward into the new year.
Agreed. Good points.
Absolutely. So Randy, what makes you unique as a search firm in the Buffalo community? StraussGroup's been around a long time. So we talked about personal branding. Tell us a little bit about what separates you out from the others.
That's really hard to answer because I don't know exactly what all the other firms do. I can only speak for ourselves. I'll start with, we find the best people. We've been here for 20 years, so we have an internal database that's been built up over 20 years. We're very well connected in the community, so we know where to find the best people. That's number one. And number two, I'll let Emily expand on our quality and our approach.
So as Randy said, we do have an extensive database of candidates from 20 years, 20 years ago and now. We stay in touch with these candidates. We do have campaigns to make sure that we're reaching out with them and making sure that we understand where they are, what they're looking for, and if they're ready to jump ship or join a different company. We do have the latest technology that helps us contact candidates within our local community, regionally, countrywide, and quite frankly, globally. Although we've been around for 20 years, we find it important to stay up to date with the latest technology and adapt. We also use assessments to ensure fit. So we do use technology in tandem with having the people-centric approach, making sure that we understand exactly who a candidate is, what they're looking for, what their talents are, and on the client side, what are your needs? What are your pain points? What does your culture look like? Describe your culture to us, right? We really want to understand, if we close our eyes and we picture a candidate, can we see them successfully in this client's company? And do we understand the company? So we do have a people-centric approach partnered with technology and assessments to help ensure fit and ensure our reach to a greater pool of candidates across the country. That's what our approach is. Randy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I want to say one thing about the assessments. So some people are very good at interviewing, and some people are very good at writing resumes. There's an old saying in the recruiting world, I've never seen a bad resume. Anybody who's savvy enough can write a good resume. What we do is we assess people for what they're going to look like 6 months into the job. We find out about their behavior, things that you cannot find out in an interview. Their resiliency, for example, their ability to deal with stress, their ability to be critical thinkers. All of that is very difficult to assess in an interview. So we go the extra mile and find out about the individual after the interview, after they start the job. What are they going to be like when they're sitting in the office with a CEO talking about strategy? And that's probably the greatest differentiator between us and a lot of the other firms. And we're proud of that.
And to add on to that, assessments are not the end all be all, right? Assessments don't determine who is selected as the candidate who gets the job offer. It really just gives more insight into how does this person naturally operate? What are their natural tendencies within the workplace behaviorally? So if someone comes on board to a company and their hiring manager has a very different personality or a very different way of being than the person that's brought on board, you want to understand that so that you can learn more about your own style, but then learn about the style of another person coming on board onto your team so that you can work best together and understand how you can synergize.
Yeah, we compare the candidate style to the hiring manager style and the leadership team style to make sure that they're compatible. Not everybody is compatible on every single level. And so we're not looking for an exact match. We're looking for what the senior leadership team is looking for. And sometimes, if you have a very high-strung, high-energy person, they might want someone very calm in a human resources role, for example. So we try to find complements to the leadership team, not necessarily exact matches. I wouldn't want somebody in my office that is exactly like me because they wouldn't survive.
Well, but I think you raise a great point, is that so often people focus on getting the job. They fail to think about being successful in the job.
Yeah.
And there's so much more, and that's the value that your organization brings. It's not just about filling that seat, it's about making the client and the employer successful. And I think that's something that people need to start thinking about as well. Even if it's a short-term gig, even if we're talking about the contract staffing piece, it's for the amount of time that you're there. Is it a good fit from a culture perspective, not just my experience? And that's how many people think. Because of that, I've just recently started having all of my clients that I work with take a DISC assessment, right? So that it's exactly what you're talking about in terms of their behaviors, their natural style, how they react in the workplace, but importantly, how to interact with others. I found that is such an important piece of the personal branding that I'm creating with them now, that I've just implemented that over the past month or so, just bringing people into that space to think about that. Right. And when you have an important tool like that, and there's many other tools, and not to get into all of them, but it's important because it provides that objective feedback and helps people see themselves in a way that sometimes we can't because we're too close to it, right?
Yeah, we agree with that. We use that among other things. We use the DISC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's many different ones, and and it just depends. But I think the important point that you're making again is it's just not about placing a person in a job. It is about the right fit for both employer and for the job seeker. Because if that synergy is not there, everyone has wasted their time, and no one is forwarding their goals.
Right.
All right, well, I appreciate very much taking the time to speak with me today. I think we've given job seekers a lot to look into, but these conversations are important because every day the job search landscape is changing. And I think the conversation is valuable to help people that are not only out of work, but people that have jobs that are looking to make that shift. What is happening? And you provided us with some great information today that people just did not have before. So the last question I have to you is, how would you like to have people recommend, or how you recommend people reach out to you? If you have someone that says, oh, one of the jobs Randy mentioned, I think I'd be great for that. Or, oh, I would love to get into some contract work. How can they best reach you? What do you recommend?
I think you should email Emily directly, Emily B at StraussGroup.com. You can get in touch with us through LinkedIn, or you can call us. We're pretty open. We're you know, there's no issues with how you want to get in touch with us. Telephone, email, or LinkedIn. We take them all.
Okay.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Whatever works best for you. If you want to add us on LinkedIn and start the conversation, that's fantastic. If you want to give us a call, we're here. If you want to shoot us an email, we check our emails. So, as Randy said, whatever your preferred method of communication is, we are happy to have a conversation.
Right. Well, I want to thank you
And
both.
I want to say one last thing.
Go ahead.
I want to thank you, Kathy, for caring so much about how our business operates, because it's important that the best relationships that we have with clients and candidates are with people who understand what we do. So the more we can get them to understand what we do, the better off the relationship and the higher the level of success. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Hopefully. Thank you both so very much. And thank you for the 20 years, Randy, that you've been supporting this community and helping job seekers and companies be successful in all that they do. So thank you both. I look forward to working with you again in 2021. And anyone, please feel free to drop any comments and questions in the comment section here. And Randy will answer them. Emily might answer them. I'll answer them. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable reaching out to any of us to have your questions answered. Thank you so much, all. Have a great day.